Bring in a comment now. Balakrishnan, the former CFO of Infosys, also an investor in several startups, joins us. Bala, thanks very much. As I pointed out, this letter, in a sense, is not just telling us the story of Snapdeal. It's telling us a story of what has gone wrong in India's startup ecosystem. What do you make of what's going on?
No, exactly. I mean, in the initial stage of the startup ecosystem developing in the country, a lot of free money came into the system. So there are greedy investors who are pumping in more money than required into the companies and telling them to go aggressively and grab the marketplace. In the whole process, the management forgot there is something called profit and cash flows. So in the urge to get more of market share, they forget the fundamental things. And most of the consumer tech companies, not only Snapdeal, many of the large companies are in the same position. Today, with the money drying up and investors focusing on profitability, I think these guys have to take the tough decision. It's a good churn to happen. Of course, it could have been avoided, but at least now it's happening. It's a good sign.
You hit upon what I was going to ask you, Bala, and it's again been articulated in this letter from the Snapdeal founders. They say in the letter, this will mean tough choices and a conscious departure from a Me Too race to the edge of the cliff. Let's remember, GMV is vanity, profit is sanity. Unfortunately, the story so far has always been about touting GMVs as the next big milestone, as the big achievement. And at the end of the day, my worry is that this is only the start. While Snapdeal may now be talking about retrenchment and making these tough choices, we are probably going to see a lot of other companies having to follow suit.
I think there were a lot of excesses happen in the consumer tech space, and I think some of it will unravel in the coming months because the ability to raise money has come down with investors focusing more and more on profitability. See, there is a problem with the consumer tech space because it's a winners-take-all market. So the investors also became greedy, put more money and asked them to go and grab the market share. And the promoters also wanted to grab more market share, so they started giving more freebies and they're making too much of losses. So basically, they converted capital to loss. It's an unsustainable model. Anybody in the financial space will know that finally profitability and cash flows are much more important. And I think many more companies will realize this and probably change tack in the coming months so that they don't come into the same position.
And we hope that that indeed does happen. In fact, Snapdeal is saying that it successfully completed a number of efficiency-enhancing measures, which has led to its EBITDA increasing by 40% in the first 9 months of this financial year. The efficiency gains arise from many business processes and operations, which has led to a 35% lower delivery cost and so on and so forth. So they're starting to clean things up now, but, you know, times are tough. But Bala, who would you blame for what has transpired in India's startup space? And what do you see happen next? Because we are now seeing investors quite literally taking control of companies. We are also seeing forced consolidation perhaps being the order of the day. What do you see as the next few moves that could be expected?
No, I think both investor and the management has to be blamed because investors pumped in more money than required. See, when you fund a startup ecosystem, it is a dangerous sign if you fund more than what is required, then some excesses will happen at the management side. So I think greedy investors are the first one to blame. And of course, management had not seen the reality coming in. And when they got free money, they started spending more and more. And they come to a situation where they cannot manage, they cannot raise money. And that is why they are in a soup. Having said that, I saw the letter. I think it's a very honest letter. It clearly says that they made mistakes and they want to correct.
Yes.
And also leadership by example. See, when you put a pain across the company, the leader should take the pain first. Then it will be easy for them to communicate and make the change happen. I think it's a very honest, open letter, and I think it's an eye-opener for many startup companies. I think all startup companies in India should read this letter and change tack and make sure they become profitable and don't become greedy.
That's exactly what I started by saying, that this letter is not a letter that explains to us the pain that Snapdeal is facing. This letter very clearly articulates for us the pain that India's startup ecosystem is facing. And as you pointed out, it's an honest letter. The Bansal's also saying that we believe that every resource of the company should be deployed for driving us towards profitable growth. And with this announcement, both Rohit and I are taking a 100% salary cut. Many of our leaders have also stepped up proactively and offered to take a significant cut in their compensation. A cautionary tale, and as Bala pointed out, perhaps lessons to be learnt across the Indian startup ecosystem. V. Balakrishnan, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18.